is being held. Let's go live to Honduras to have these images. So these are images we're getting from Honduras at the building of the Central Bank of Honduras, as the president of this nation, Xiomara Castro, is preparing to receive the different delegations that arrived here between yesterday and today, Wednesday, with the arrival of President of Mexico, Xiomara Claudia Sheinbaum, to take part in this 9th CELAC Summit. We are seeing the live images as the first delegations begin to arrive, and they are going to be welcomed by the President of Honduras, Xiomara Castro, here at the headquarters where the summit is going to be held at the Central Bank of Honduras, the building of the Central Bank of Honduras. Let's see who is the first head of state or representative that is arriving at this point in the Honduran capital in Tegucigalpa, as everything is getting ready to kickstart this paramount summit, which is important for the future and the strategic guidelines that are going to be followed by the peoples of our regions and the different governments. Well, the first representatives are arriving here at the Central Bank of Honduras, and they are being greeted by the president of the nation, Xiomara Castro, as little by little the Uruguayan president, Yamandu Orsi, is the first one to arrive here at the headquarters of the Central Bank of Honduras, as everything is getting ready to begin this 9th CELAC Summit. There, as protocol dictates, the president of the host countries taking the picture as the first head of state arrived here at the location where the 9th summit is going to be held. After a short greeting, the Uruguayan president, Yamandu Orsi, continues greeting all the officials and people that have come here to welcome him at the Central Bank ahead of this CELAC Summit. This CELAC Summit, which is very important in a context that is taking place because of all the challenges that are being faced by the people of the world, more recently with the imposition of tariffs by the United States, which is having a huge impact in the world economy. And President Petro, who is going to assume the pro tempore presidency of the regional bloc, has already pledged his work that is going to create a strategy to give a bloc response, a united response from the region to all these different changes. But of course, there are also other topics that are key on the agenda that are going to be debated on this 9th CELAC Summit that is about to begin in a few moments, as soon as all the different delegations, heads of states, of government, and representatives of the 33 member countries finish arriving here at this location, the Central Bank of Honduras, where the summit is going to be held. The other topics that are going to be on the agenda is the migratory crisis, which is also been on point on different organizations and human rights organizations, especially after what has been happening as well, coming from the States, the massive deportations of immigrants without due process and without the care for human rights and dignity of those migrants that are being deported in the way they are being. So other issues that are also going to be important here on the agenda is the climate crisis, which is having a devastating impact for the region, for the whole world, in its entirety, but also mainly for the region in different countries which are facing the direct consequences of climate change, something that has been induced by the activity of humanity by certain countries in terms of the rapid development, putting profit over the care of the environment, and those consequences have been seen by the peoples of the region, Latin American and Caribbean, with stronger hurricanes than ever, with long droughts, heavy rains, mudslides, landslides, all these different weather phenomena that have been impacting the region, especially now, for example, in Bolivia, which is facing a severe crisis due to strong heavy rains. We continue to see the images as the president of Uruguay, Yamandu Orsi, continues to make his way into the area where the summit, the 9th CELAC Summit, is going to be held, which is should be starting anytime soon from now. CELAC, we must remember that CELAC as an organization, as a regional bloc, which stands for the letters stand for the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States, is an intergovernmental mechanism for dialogue and political agreement, which include primarily 33 countries in Latin America and the Caribbean. It's a regional forum that brings together all of Latin America and the Caribbean countries, and the organization, the regional bloc, aspires to be a unique voice and structured decision-making policy in the political and cooperation in support of regional integration programs. It's like the main goal, the main focus for which it was created. And it was created with the commitment to advance the gradual process of regional integration, unity, and carefully balancing political, economic, social, and cultural diversity of Latin America and the Caribbean. The region, which comprises of over 650 million people, as the latest census, according to the latest census. This regional bloc, which was launched in December 2011, has helped to deepen the respectful dialogue among all countries in the region in areas such as social development, education, nuclear disarmament, family farming, culture, finance, energy, and the environment. This is something that has been praised by the Foreign Minister of Honduras, who said that one of the biggest achievements of the pro tempore presidency of Honduras under the leadership of President Xiomara Castro was the CELAC was able to preserve the unity within CELAC, despite the difference in ideology, the difference in cultures. But despite all these obstacles, unity has been praised as one of the main objectives and as a way to continue moving forward, because in order to face all the different, just from yesterday's meeting from foreign ministers that they gathered on Tuesday to fill out the points that were going to be addressed on the final, and to fine-tune that final declaration, they all came together and they all expressed that the necessity of unity. We're seeing now on our screen that another delegation is arriving here, the Central Bank of Honduras, where the IX CELAC Summit is about to begin. Let's see who is arriving right now. Waiting to see who comes out the car. And the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Ralph Gonsalves, is the second head of state and government to arrive here at the central Bank of Honduras to take part as well, of course, of this IX CELAC Summit. Ralph Gonsalves, who has been a key speaker of regional integration and of unity among the peoples of Latin America and the Caribbean. Of course, the Prime Minister of South Vincent and the Grenadines being welcomed by the President of Honduras, Xiomara Castro, after a short greeting as protocol mandates. We'll go inside the building of the Central Bank of Honduras, where the President of Uruguay, Yamandu Orsi, is already there waiting for the rest of heads of states and government to arrive, and so that this IX CELAC Summit of heads of states and government can kickstart. I was referring, we have another delegations, the rest of the delegation are arriving, entering the building. As we were recently referring to, the summit in a way began on Tuesday with the meeting of foreign ministers that gathered to fine-tune those points that were going to be in that final declaration, which the region is being very attentive to it, because it's going to encompass the strategic guidelines to follow by the peoples of the region to move forward in their development and prosperity, and also as a block response to all these challenges and obstacles that are currently being faced by the region. We're having images both from within the room where the CELAC Summit is going to be held. we're seeing that different foreign ministers of the Venezuelan delegation, we're seeing on the lower picture of the screen, is already inside or waiting. And there's also another car arriving on the picture on the right, on the upper right. We have another delegation arriving. Let's see who is this. Who's the latest head of state of government that is arriving here at the Central Bank of Honduras. I believe this is the Cuban delegation. I'm seeing on their screen the foreign minister of Cuba. I believe the man standing is the foreign minister of Cuba, Bruno Rodriguez. So the person in the car should be the President Miguel Díaz-Canel, if it is the delegation of Cuba. Every effect. Precisely, we are seeing the President of Cuba, Miguel Díaz-Canel, get off the car as he prepares to enter the bank, the Central Bank of Honduras building. He's going to be first, of course, be welcomed by the President of Honduras, Xiomara Castro, seeing the greeting between the two heads of states. Honduras, which has expressed in yesterday's meetings the long history of friendship and cooperation that exists between both peoples, between the peoples of Cuba and the peoples of Honduras. And the President of Cuba has also arrived then to this building, the Central Bank of Honduras, where the CELAC Summit is going to be held. If we do a quick recap, we have already inside the building the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the President of Uruguay, and now the President of Cuba already inside the building. And we saw in the images on the picture down below in their screen, there were also other delegations already present, foreign ministers and different delegations are already present here. As we can see, they're already sitting at the table where the meeting is going to be held in a few minutes, as soon as all the remaining heads of states and government arrive here at the seat of the Honduran Central Bank, where this Paramount Summit is going to be held. So we were referring to this important meeting that was held on Tuesday, ahead of this one where we're going to have live on our screen, which is the one of the foreign ministers where they fine-tune the final points of that final declarations that is expected to be approved after this meeting of heads of states and summit. And in the meeting of the foreign ministers that was held on Tuesday, it carried out an agenda that sought to prepare the grounds for the presidential summit on April 9th, which is what we are seeing today. All the different foreign ministers were referring to the importance of unity and to take joint action to face global challenges. This was expressed by especially the foreign minister of Colombia, who is also going to be, Colombia is the country that is going to be assuming the pro tempore presidency of CELAC. We have another delegation just arriving. So the representative of Haiti, I believe, has just arrived here at the central bank. Is being welcomed by the President Xiomara Castro of Honduras, as they all get ready to enter before beginning the IX CELAC Summit. For his part, referring again to the meeting of the foreign minister, which is what happened on Tuesday, The Uruguayan Foreign Minister, Mario Lubetkin, indicated that his country is committed to fight against hunger and poverty and environmental protection and energy transition, which also important points are going to be debated on the CELAC Summit, which is food security, and for that the production to be able to render the land productive in the region, which has been described by many heads of state that the region has a very rich land that has to be used but of course has to be used taking care of the environment, which is the latest strengths of progressive governments, that to take care of the environment has to be accompanied with all the different policies that aim to taking care, of course, of the people. And energy is also going to be an important focus on this meeting. We are seeing different nations across the region facing energy situation not only due to the climate conditions and climate change effects that have on rains and water levels, but also due to the different sanctions and blockades that some of the countries of the region suffer, which prevents the maintenance of the equipment necessary to produce power. So any transition to a clean energy is also going to be an important aspect to be debated in this IX CELAC Summit. The Uruguayan Foreign Minister also pointed out that the member countries should outline their strategies to consolidate mechanisms to face natural disasters or extreme weather phenomena, as well as to achieve the construction of a regional infrastructure and interconnection network and access to new technologies for education, innovation, and technological development. This is also something that there's been promoted from Venezuela with the creation of the Research Center of AI, which was presented a few weeks ago. With this center, people of the region are invited to come in and to together, according to the necessities of every region, to create and develop and produce the tools necessary and to have independence from hegemonic tools, which at times are being used to subvert the peoples of the region and to create conflicts and to create instability. And that's why it's necessary for the region to have its own tools to face the challenges that the region must overcome. Just a recap, we continue live in Honduras. These are live images coming from the Central Bank of Honduras, where the IX CELAC Summit is going to be held. The Prime Ministers and Vice Grenadines, the Uruguayan President, the President of Cuba, the representation of Haiti have already arrived. They're already inside the building alongside other delegations that are being represented by foreign ministers and diplomats of the 33 member countries of CELAC, which its 9th summit is expected to begin as soon all the different heads of states and government arrive here at the Central Bank of Honduras. We have a new delegation arriving. And now is the turn of the President of Guatemala, who just arrived. It's going to be, of course, according to protocol, be greeted by the President of Honduras, Xiomara Castro, to take the arrival picture, and then he will continue on inside the building as all is getting ready for the beginning of the 9th CELAC Summit. The main objective, of course, of this meeting is to reinforce strength and unity of the regional, which has been the key component of all the statements that we have heard so far coming from the foreign ministers and the different delegations as they arrive and announced that they were going to travel to Honduras for this 9th CELAC Summit. Remember, CELAC comprises 33 nations, 33 member nations are part of this regional bloc, and unity and regional integration is one of the key aspects of this meeting, which is, and this in the current times, is one of the main issues to be addressed to face the current challenges. So in this stage, Tegucigalpa, the Honduran capital, has become the epicenter of politics, we could say, of policies, we could say, of Latin and the region, as the authorities of the over 30 countries are already present here in the Honduran capital. Most are represented by delegations and by their foreign ministers and diplomatic delegations, but also there are a few, over 10 heads of states and government have come here to take part of this summit in presence. We are seeing on the left picture, I believe that's former Honduran President Manuel Zelaya, who's also inside the Central Bank building, greeting the officials that are arriving. So the appointment today that is going to be developed here, this CELAC Summit that is going to be developed here in the Central Bank of Honduras, marks the ending of the pro-tempore presidency of Honduras, led by the leadership of Honduran President Xiomara Castro, which in this year is we could say she has achieved lots of goals that she had when she took over the presidency, and one of the most important has been the ability to preserve unity and also to make the region to come forward and present projects of integration as an answer to common challenges. If we look at the picture to the right, we can see the arrival of Bolivian President Luis Arce Catacora, who's making his way to be greeted by the Honduran President Xiomara Castro to the protocolary picture, and to continue moving it and to continue as these heads of states and government continue to arrive here at the building of the Central Bank of Honduras. So now is the turn of the Bolivian President Luis Arce, who just arrived, being greeted by the President of Honduras, Xiomara Castro. Different officials are here present at the entrance, and he will continue as did the rest of heads of states of government that arrived, followed of course by its delegation. So in the last hours, we have seen the arrival of different heads of states of government and foreign ministers and deputy foreign ministers from different diplomatic delegations of the regions are gathered here on the picture we're seeing to the left. They're gathered there in that room, sitting around that table, waiting for the remaining heads of states of government to arrive to kickstart this IX CELAC Summit. So the main issue we have been debated, just as a recap, that are going to be discussed in this IX CELAC Summit as soon as it begins, once all the heads of states and government have arrived, are going to be economic and trade cooperation, which this is a point that it was important before, but is now more important than ever due to the current context of the U.S. tariffs that are being imposed around the world. Just today, Wednesday, the U.S. imposed new tariffs on over 60 countries, including China, which they reinforced the tariff that they had previously imposed of 34. Now it went all the way over to 104%. And other countries, the European Union, it went over to 20, and many other countries are facing 50% tariff. All this is, of course, experts are already predicting the devastating impact that this is going to have on the world economy and on world trade. So this point of economic and trade cooperation is going to be is now on top of the agenda. Is going to be very critical to see what the strategy, what regional response as a bloc can be delivered and what will be presented by the region, which is also one of the many reasons that people are waiting for that final declaration to see the fine-tune, the points that were fine-tuned in yesterday's summit of foreign ministers and that are going to be addressed and discussed, debated in this IX CELAC Summit by the heads of states and government that have gathered here, and also, of course, by the different diplomatic representation of the remaining member countries. CELAC has 33 member countries. Let's go very quickly on who are those 33 member countries that are part of CELAC. In CELAC, we have from the Caribbean, we have Antigua and Barbuda, we have Bahamas, Barbados, we have Cuba. From Latin America, Argentina, Argentina, Belize, Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Dominica from the Caribbean, Ecuador, El Salvador, Grenada, Guatemala, Guyana, Honduras, Jamaica, Mexico, Nicaragua, Panama, Paraguay, Peru, Dominican Republic, St. Lucia, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Trinidad and Tobago, Uruguay, and Venezuela. They are all the member nations of CELAC, all 33 member nations that come together in a commitment to find a way to, in unison, in unity, to be able to overcome the obstacles faced by the region. And one of those main obstacles on this occasion, that's why this summit, due to the context it comes from, is so important, is so paramount for the region, as it's a way that we are going to be able to see how the region is going to respond to the current challenges and how the region is going to face what comes next, the coming years. A second aspect also is going to be very important in this summit is going to be climate change, of course, and natural disasters, which something that is very familiar, unfortunately, to our region, and is currently South America has been facing many natural disasters translated in floods, wildfires, in most of them induced by climate change, of course, and the activity of man that has triggered this rapid climate change. And despite the fact that maybe it's not so much the region, the Latin American region, the one that have produced the most, that have contributed the most to that climate change, but it's one of the regions that is facing the consequence the most, without a doubt, in the Caribbean, with the different storms and hurricanes, which are being more recurrent and stronger than recorded, and also in the continental region itself, with floods, wildfires, mudslides, landslides, and with record temperatures of high temperatures, which is also, and the droughts, which is also affecting one of the points that are going to be discussed, which is food security. We're seeing the arrival of another delegation here at the Central Bank of Honduras, another head of state arriving, being welcomed by the President of Honduras, Xiomara Castro. And after the greeting, they continue to make their way into the room where everyone else is already there waiting to kickstart this paramount summit. Another issue is going to be, I was referring, that is very linked, is before the latest arrival of heads of states and government, is food security and the fight against poverty, something that Colombian President Gustavo Petro has already announced that is going to be on top of, is going to be one of the center points of his pro tempore presidency, the fight to secure food security and to eradicate poverty in the region. So this is something that is unfortunately also very much impacting the peoples of the Latin American and Caribbean region. And it's also very linked to climate change, to the loss of farmlands due to droughts and wildfires, and to the loss in the Caribbean, to the loss in the face of storms and hurricanes. Also on the agenda is going to be the energy transition and access to technology, which is something that the region has to strive as a bloc to create its own resources, to create its own tools, to create technology, which is what we were referring just moments ago. A big step towards this objective is the creation of this AI center research that is being developed in Venezuela, where all the member nations of CELAC are invited to participate and to bring their contribution, and of course to create the necessary tools in the context of each of the different nations, because all nations, of course, do not face the same problems, but as a unity, which is what is being promoted within CELAC as a regional bloc, in a way to help each other in a two-way street, to give and receive, to move forward and to create that prosperity, that well-being for the peoples of the region. That's why the access to technology is also very important in this day and age, when we see hegemonic hegemonic technologies being used, hegemonic companies, transnationals, which monopolizes technologies, and then they are used as a method of oppression and as a method of blackmail, as a tool of blackmail to carry out whatever it is their will. That's why it's important for the region, Latin American Caribbean region, to be able to count with their own tools and challenges to be able to move forward. And energy transition, of course, is also to be very strongly debated, to have that energy independence in order to not fall in energy crisis, as has been unfortunately being experienced by some countries of the region. We have another delegation arriving on the central bank here of Honduras. I was seeing at the, looks like it is the Brazilian delegation, according to the image that we had just seconds ago, the image of the Brazilian flag with the Honduran flags at the spot where President of Honduras greets the arriving heads of states. And effectively, this is the Brazilian President, Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva, who is just arriving at the central bank to take part as well in this IX CELAC Summit. We have there the Brazilian President greeting reporters and everyone that is gathered here. It's going to, of course, be welcomed by the Honduran President, Xiomara Castro. The customary photograph of the arrival. Seeing this very friendly greeting between President Lula da Silva and the Honduran President, as we continue waiting for the remaining heads of states to arrive so that this IX CELAC Summit can kickstart. And while we continue to wait, let's go over the other point that is important for this meeting, that's going to be addressed by the people, by the representations of the 33 member countries that have gathered here in Tegucigalpa, is education, health, and the rights, of course, of indigenous and Afro-descendant peoples, which is a struggle that we have seen taking place, especially in South America, the rights of indigenous peoples and Afro-descendants, especially in the face of, for example, mining companies and all these big transnational companies that want to go over the rights of the indigenous people of their ancestral lands in order to gain more profit and in order to gain more money. So these rights are also going to be debated, and health and education, the access to health and education, of quality health and quality education, is also going to be on top of the agendas, and something that has been being promoted by different governments, progressive governments, especially of the region, for the well-being, for the prosperity of their respective people. If we cover, for example, in terms of health, we see that we have seen the expression of solidarity and support of the region, of the Cuban health brigades, which have come under attack by the U.S. government and its allies through a smear campaign, a slander campaign of this solidarity work that is carried out by the Cuban island, by the Cuban people, through its sending of doctors to help those least favored across not only in the region but also across the world. And we have seen the response from within the bloc of the CELAC and from other regional groupings as well, and ALBA and CARICOM, of support for those Cuban medical brigades and the work that it does. And a final point that is going to be debated, of course, is going to be the migration crisis, especially in these current times after the U.S. policies of those massive forced deportations, without any kind of due process, without any kind of respect for the human rights and for the dignity as a human, for the dignities of those migrants being deported, and in very specific case, the Venezuelan migrants, the way they are being persecuted just for being Venezuelans and maybe for having a tattoo or two, the way they are being treated and disrespected. We had the news of the deportations of the Venezuelan migrants all the way from the States without a court hearing, without any kind of due process, being deported straight to a max security prison in El Salvador, a prison that is infamous, we could say, for the violations of human rights and mistreatment that people detained there receive. Something that has been condemned also by international organizations, human rights groups, and very strongly by the Venezuelan people and the Venezuelan government. They have been described as a kidnapping, that those migrants that were taken, most in their majority Venezuelans, taken to that security prison, that max security prison in Salvador, is a kidnapping. So migration is going to be there, and of course peace and the fight against corruption. And I believe it was the foreign minister of Cuba, Bruno Rodriguez, who during the foreign ministers meeting held yesterday, here also in Tegucigalpa, as they fine-tune the final points for the final declaration that is expected to be approved today by the heads of states and government and the different delegations present here. The foreign minister of Venezuela said the importance to make sure to preserve the fact that the region is, and to make sure that it continues to be, a region of peace and a region of stability, to make sure that it doesn't fall into any kind of conflict and warmongering ideas. And this is something that comes right in the moment when Venezuela has been denouncing the Guyanese's plans of a false flag operation during this context, attacking an attack against an ExxonMobil platform in the disputed waters of the Essequibo region, to justify violent actions, to justify a war against Venezuela, which is something that has been denounced by Venezuela out loud in different contexts, and I'm sure it's also something that's going to be denounced here in this summit. It's also that is going to be addressed as the region, as member countries have to find a way to make sure that the region continues to be an area of peace and stability, and that wars don't come again to our region, and that whatever differences arises can be debated and solved through diplomatic means. So this is something that's going to be also there addressed, and the fight against corruption, which also on the table, of course, put forward by the foreign ministers in Tuesday's meeting, is of course the regional impact of the trade and migratory policies implemented by the new government of the United States, the government of Donald Trump. And I'm guessing what people are most expecting, what people are tuning to see, is to see what kind of regional bloc response is going to be given against this tariff war that was launched by the U.S. government, by Washington, and that is already having, we are seeing on the stock markets, is already having a strong impact on the markets. We have seen how the shares, the stock has lost value all over from Wall Street all the way to Tokyo. So it's something that is impacting the world trade as a whole. These unilateral tariffs imposed by Donald Trump, as is being referred, this tariff war that has been launched by Donald Trump on the pretext of protecting national production. The foreign minister of Cuba, which delegation is already inside, we saw the arrival of President Miguel Diaz-Canel alongside the foreign minister and the rest of the Cuban delegation. Has also made the pledge of and the commitment to preserve unity, integrity, and the regional sovereignty. Something that is going to be echoed, that has been echoed by the different foreign ministers, and that has been echoed by the different heads of states before arriving here. Before arriving here at the Central Bank of Honduras to gather in this IX CELAC Summit, which comes at a very important time, and it's very important to see what the regional response is going to be, what the strategy, which has already been announced, that the final declaration that is to be approved in this meeting will set the strategic guidelines for the coming years for the region, for development, for production, for prosperity, for security, for food security, and how the region is going to tackle the climate crisis and the different challenges that are currently being faced by the peoples of Latin America and the Caribbean. So this IX CELAC Summit comes in amidst, as we have been referring, the commercial war that has been declared by the President of the United States, Donald Trump, and the deportations of thousands of migrants since the U.S. President assumed the presidency on January 20th, which were campaign promises during the electoral campaign of Venezuela, of the United States. In the case of Latin America, referring to the trade tariffs, the unilateral tariffs that have been imposed to countries around the world, to over 180 countries, the United States has imposed tariffs. But very specifically, in the case of Latin America, Trump announced the imposition of what he calls reciprocal tariffs of 10% to all imported goods coming from countries of the region, with only two exceptions, which is Venezuela and Nicaragua. These two countries, in the case of Venezuela, is 15% import tariffs, and in the case of Nicaragua is 18%. This, of course, this imposition of tariffs affects not only the world, but also affects the U.S. consumer, because the U.S. consumer now will see prices coming up, especially the insane tariffs that were imposed on China, since many products in the States are imported from or use goods imported from China. So the U.S. consumer is also going to be strongly impacted. It's going to see its wages have less value. But in terms of the region, it creates an atmosphere of uncertainty unless strategic measures are taken, because then companies are going to have higher costs, and usually what it means for private companies when they have higher costs, the first thing that they do is to fire people. So the job losses is something that is concerning a lot the peoples around the world. Is one of the main aspects that is concerning the people around the world, the common people, when these measures come into effect. For the part going to the Caribbean, CARICOM, the Caribbean community, the taxes imposed on these nations of the Caribbean is 10% for most parts, with the exception, which this comes as an irony, we could say, that Guyana, which has arisen as the main ally in a way against Venezuela with the United States, they are going to receive a 38% tariff. But the message that wants to be sent from Tegucigalpa is one, which has been repeated over and over by the different delegations. And the message is clear, that today, more than ever, Latin American Caribbean integration is more alive, and that has to be the core, and that has to be the main result of this summit, which is to ensure a stronger regional integration, a stronger unity, and that's why this summit is held under the slogan, United for the Great Homeland, which is the slogan under which this IX CELAC Summit is being held. United for the Great Homeland, which was envisioned, if we go all the way back on those years in history, by the great liberator Simon Bolivar. Is one of the, we could say, founding fathers in a way of all these integration movements of the 21st century. We have another delegation arriving. I believe this is going to be the Colombian delegation, because we saw the Colombian flag on the screen of right where the Honduran president welcomes the heads of states. So this is very likely Colombian President Gustavo Petro. Let's wait for him to get off the car to confirm it. And effectively, we have President Gustavo Petro of Colombia arriving here at the Central Bank of Honduras, where the IX CELAC Summit is going to be held. We must remember that Colombia, under the leadership of Gustavo Petro, is going to be the one assuming the pro tempore presidency of CELAC after this meeting. We're seeing Petro greeting the different officials gathered here, and of course, his Honduran counterpart, Xiomara Castro, taking the protocol pictures of his arrival as they prepare to go inside the building to continue with the schedule of this important IX CELAC Summit as the region aims to continue strengthening. So we have seen the arrival of several heads of states of government here at the headquarters where the CELAC Summit is going to be held. We saw the arrival of the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Ralph Gonsalves. We saw the arrival of the Cuban President, Miguel Diaz-Canel, of Bolivia, Luis Arce, Colombia, Gustavo Petro. Earlier we had on our screen the arrival of the Mexican President, Claudia Sheinbaum, at the airport. So it seems that little by little, all the pieces are in place here at Tegucigalpa, which has become the epicenter of the region's politics, and all eyes are on this meeting, on this IX CELAC Summit, to see what the regional response is going to be to the current challenges and what the strategy is looking ahead into the short-term, medium-term future for the region, and how the peoples of the region are going to move forward. I believe they are getting ready to welcome now the President of Mexico. You're seeing the screen there, the Mexican flag alongside the Honduran flag. So the Mexican President should be very close to arrive here at the Central Bank of Honduras. Meanwhile, we are also seeing images on the right picture of the screen of all the different delegations already there inside the room where the meeting is going to be held. The different delegations. We must remember 33 countries are part of this group, of this regional bloc. So we are seeing the arrival of the Mexican President, because we can confirm it's the Mexican President because the car has the Mexican flag. We do not need to wait for her to get off the car. So Claudia Sheinbaum, I believe, was one of the latest head of state to arrive in Tegucigalpa. We saw live here on teleSUR when she arrived at the airport. We're seeing the Mexican President, Claudia Sheinbaum, arriving at the headquarters where the IX CELAC Summit is going to be held, which is going to be created by Xiomara Castro. And this is a very important image we're seeing. A female Mexican president and the first female also Honduran president greeting each other previously to this, which marks how far some countries of the region have come in terms of promoting diversity and equality. We saw that the Honduran president made a very special invitation to the Mexican president to come and be here during this IX CELAC Summit. I think perhaps maybe with climate change bound, all delegations have arrived. We're going to have to wait for confirmation. Well, we are now closer than ever for the IX CELAC Summit to begin in just a few minutes, under the slogan, United for the Great Homeland, and emphasizing the importance of regional integration and unity. The President of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, announced that during her participation also here in the CELAC, she's going to be also bringing aspects and promoting aspects that may be useful for the other countries of the region of Plan Mexico, the strategy that she presented as a way to move forward the development of the Mexican nation and to strengthen the national economy of Mexico, which is also something that CELAC is going to be addressing, as we pointed out, which is how to face the economy right now, how to promote the development of the countries, of the member countries' economy, especially in the face of the trade war that was launched by the United States with the impositions of unilateral tariffs. So we'll continue to see the images. I believe that with President Claudia Sheinbaum of Mexico, all the pieces are here present at the Central Bank of Honduras. So we are seeing President Xiomara Castro accompanying the Mexican president to the room where the meeting is about to begin. So we can assume that with the arrival of the Mexican president, Claudia Sheinbaum, all the participants are already gathered here. So the IX CELAC Summit will begin as soon as the President of Honduras and the President of Mexico arrive at the hall where everyone else is already gathered. All the different delegations that have come to here to Tegucigalpa, that have met here in Tegucigalpa, the heads of state and government and the diplomatic representations of the 33 member countries that have come together here at the Central Bank of Honduras to hold this 9th Heads of States and Government CELAC Summit, where regional integration is going to be very important, and where the peoples of the region and the world are putting their eyes on what the response is going to be, on what the strategy is going to be, what strategy is going to be outlined to face the current challenges. And the President of Honduras has already pledged a commitment to continue strengthening sovereignty of the peoples and to continue strengthening the integration of the people's region, which is also something that Gustavo Petro, the President of Colombia, who is going to assume the pro tempore presidency after this meeting of the regional bloc, is going to also make the pledge to maintain and to preserve unity within the bloc and to create the different strategies to eradicate poverty and to secure food security in the region, and to continue moving forward in the different aspects for which CELAC was created in the first place, which is to have a platform for a space for common dialogue and for integration and unity in the strategies to have joint actions to face the challenges that the region faces and will face in the future obstacles as well. So we continue to see live images here in Tegucigalpa at the Central Bank of Honduras, where all 33 member nations have come and gathered through diplomatic representations, and there are over a dozen heads of states that have also come here to participate in person in this IX CELAC Summit. This marks a very important moment for Honduras, which is the first time hosting this kind of summit, this kind of event. It also marks the end of a year of the pro tempore presidency of the Honduran president, through which different achievements have been reached, and most especially the unity of the region has been maintained in a way within CELAC, despite the ideological differences that exist among several nations. So we're going to stay tuned as everything is getting ready to begin. The President of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, was the last to arrive here at the headquarters, should be entering very soon the room, as well accompanied alongside the Honduran President, Xiomara Castro, which is the host. And just to recap, she's going to be closing her pro tempore presidency, and Colombia, under the leadership of President Gustavo Petro, will assume at the end of this meeting the pro tempore presidency of CELAC, of the regional bloc, as well as the approval of the final declaration of Tegucigalpa, which is something that the foreign minister fine-tuned on Tuesday, on yesterday's meeting, ahead of this presidential of this meeting that we're seeing live here on our screen. So we're in that final declaration, we're going to see the result of all these discussions and all these debates in the different important aspects. The main aspects that are going to be debated here today as well, as is economic and trade cooperation, climate change and natural disasters, food security and the fight against poverty, energy transition and access to technology, education, health, rights of indigenous and Afro-descendant peoples, as well as migration, peace, and the fight against corruption. All this is going to be in that final declaration, but more importantly, we're going to have the strategic guideline that is going to be followed by the countries of the region in the next period of time, to see the strategies that they devise to face the current challenges, especially right now that the world is facing a lot of uncertainty in different aspects, and more especially in terms of trade. We're seeing the entrance to the room of Xiomara Castro, accompanied by all the different heads of states and government that have come here today. We saw Colombian president, we saw the Mexican president, the Brazilian president as well, entering the room alongside Xiomara Castro. So all the actors are in place. The meeting is soon to begin, and we can only wait and listen to the statements that will soon come from the different heads of states and government, and see what the strategy is going to be for the region in the coming times, and how the region is going to face the challenges that is currently, and the obstacles, and how are they going to be overcome. It is an important day for the region in terms of integration, and a pledge that has been made by the different delegations to make sure that the region continues to be united, and of course to make sure that it continues to be a region of peace, which those are two of the most important aspects that are going to be preserved, and that both Xiomara Castro during her year and Gustavo Petro has already pledged that is going to be also among the main focus of Colombia's pro tempore presidency. So everything is ready. Let's stay tuned with the images. Stay tuned with teleSUR English, as the IX CELAC Summit is very shortly about to begin. All the delegations are present. The heads of states are also here. The ones that travel to Tegucigalpa are here. So you saw the stage is set. If we go very quickly over the main topics to be discussed by those present here today: economic and commercial cooperation, climate change, natural disasters, food security, the fight against poverty, energy transition and access to technology, education, health, rights of indigenous and Afro-descendant peoples, as well as migration, peace, and the fight against corruption. So the participants have taken their seat. The summit should be beginning very shortly. Let's pay attention and listen. Well, it should be starting very soon. Let's just wait a couple of seconds more, but it should be starting soon. We must remember CELAC is comprised by 33 member states. They have all come here for different representations, foreign ministers and diplomatic relations, and also over 10 heads of states are also here. Heads of states are also present here to be part of this paramount IX CELAC Summit, as the future of the region can be decided, and the strategies that are going to be planned and are going to be fought for are going to be decided at this summit. So live images we're getting from Honduras, Tegucigalpa, the capital, at the Central Bank of Honduras building, which is the headquarters for this IX CELAC Summit of Heads of States and Government. With this summit marks the end of the pro-tempore presidency of Honduras and the beginning of the pro-tempore presidency of Colombia under the leadership of President Gustavo Petro, which has already made commitments to ensure peace in the region, to ensure the continued fight for stronger integration and stronger cooperation among member countries, and to ensure the prosperity and the development of the different industries of the region to have independence. The summit is beginning. Let's listen.
Let's welcome all delegations that are visiting us and all honored visitors here in the CELAC.
El desarrollo del programa se apertura del cuadro de danzas con la participación Compañía Nacional de Danza Folclórica del cuadro de danzas.
So now let's listen. Let's see the artistic musical band, and the presentation now of
de Guamil, sol ardiente, se ve la historia en los rostros de la gente. Hermosa tierra, molo de eternidad, tiene esa luz que va repartiendo vida. Sus sos la semilla y sos la fuerza en el arado. Tenés el alma en el bullicio del mercado. Suena la guitarra y la marimba, las maracas con el acordeón, que suene la flauta y la caramba, suene el tambor y el caracol. El acordeón, que suene la flauta y la caramba, suene el tambor y el caracol. En mi país.
Yo soy el indio gualcince que vengo de tierra fría, con mi cacaste en el lomo y muchas cositas dentro. Parinde, titirihui, parinde, trimanaje, toma kiutuche, la cuadrine, titirihui, trimanaje, apipirindonga, apipiri lloro, apipirindonga, apipiri lloro. Plu 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 plu.
Agua la nanida huanca, yulo nanida huanca, damiki mulika, miskitu indianki. Agua la nanida huanca, yulo nanida huanca, damiki mulika, miskitu indianki.
Kairaman,
Miskitu indiasman,
wagmanan,
miskitu indiasman,
karakamasin,
miskitu indiasman,
bukrakamasing,
miskitu indiasman. Agua la nanida huanca, yulo nanida huanca, damiki mulika, miskitu indianki. Agua la nanida huanca, yulo nanida huanca, damiki mulika, miskitu indianki. Damiki mulika, miskitu indianki. ¡Y que viva Honduras!
tierra bendita.
Hola, buenos días. De parte de la Secretaría de las Culturas, las Artes y los Patrimonios de los Pueblos de Honduras, les damos un saludo y abrazo caluroso. Lo que escucharon y presenciaron acá es un popurrí de diversas regiones de nuestro país, que también va a ser un video para promocionar y dar a conocer nuestros tesoros culturales. Yo soy Yuri Pineda, cantautor hondureño. Y en esta ocasión traía lista una canción que se llama Raíz, que habla sobre la maravilla de mi país y cosas de las que me siento orgulloso de mi cultura. Pero ahora mismo siento en mi corazón cantar una canción que creo que es mucho más significativa para todos los presentes. Una canción que compuse en el año 2009. Y lo recuerdo muy bien porque estábamos atravesando un golpe de estado. Y yo era un estudiante joven con muchas preguntas en mi cabeza. ¿Qué hago yo aquí? ¿Cómo formo parte de esta lucha? ¿Qué hago yo aquí? Como con mis herramientas, que son palabras, melodías, puedo hacer frente a esto que estamos viviendo ahora. Y nació esta canción que se llama Somos Búsqueda Sin Tregua. Nació esta canción que se llama Somos
I hope you enjoy it.
Sin Tregua. De existencia en el tiempo, de estampidas en el viento, de promesas y recuerdos. Soy una avalancha de colores y desgracia, de dulzura y más desgracia, de silencios y nostalgias. Soy estimulado por las hojas del clavel, por el agua que se cuela en el techo. Soy una garganta que se gasta por los pétalos que canta y las espinas que le arrastran. Soy una caricia que se enciende y se transforma, una ráfaga arcoíris que se plasma en la penumbra. Soy solo una sombra propagada en el sonido que se mueve con el viento y se ahoga en los suspiros. Soy una esperanza que se arrastra, una lluvia que no acaba, un relámpago con alma. Somos flama que no muere, un tornado con entrañas, un fenómeno sin nombre. Somos búsqueda sin tregua. Tengo un corazón testarudo y antisocial, semidescompuesto y falto de nociones. Tengo un corazón caníbal e insaciable, déspota, inmanipulable. Un corazón descorazonado, desconsiderado y anarquista. Tengo un corazón malabarista, picante y agridulce, fetichista. Un corazón que presenta algunas fallas, tornillos flojos o falta de combustible, daños en el sistema operativo o más de alguna cuerda reventada. Tengo un corazón que no sabe de nada, pésimo contador y no entiende de filosofía, ni de matemáticas, ni de ninguna ciencia. Un corazón gorila, analfabestia, que para colmo de males irrumpe en mi comodidad, abusa de mi privacidad, me encañona y exilia, me manda en pijamas al país de sus maravillas, me bloquea y reprime mis pocas formas de comunicación. Ay, corazón dictador, siempre de conflictivo, haciéndole guerra a mis ideas más sobrias, tomándote el poder sin siquiera consultar. Y soy una esperanza que se arrastra, una lluvia que no acaba, un relámpago con alma. Somos flama que no muere, un tornado con entrañas, un fenómeno canta, que se gasta por los pétalos que canta y las espinas que le arrastran. Muchas gracias, Latinoamérica. Muchas gracias, Latinoamérica y demás países invitados.
Muchas gracias
Demás
al cuadro
países
de
invitados.
danzas Compañía
Muchas gracias.
Nacional de Danza Folclórica. Al cuadro de danzas Compañía
Thank
Nacional
you very
de Danza
much
Folclórica de Honduras
to
y al cantautor hondureño
the musical
Yuri Pineda.
band.
Señoras y señores, a continuación,
And to the Honduran
en el
songwriter.
uso de la palabra, la señora
Ladies and gentlemen, the constitutional president of Honduras, Xiomara Castro, will give the floor, and who is right now the president of the CELAC, who is the who holds the pro-temporary presidency of the CELAC. Let's welcome her.
Excelentísimos jefes y jefas de Estado, excelentísimos cancilleres y ministros de Estado, representantes de la patria grande,
Dear heads of state and government,
representantes de la patria grande,
foreign ministers,
hermanos y hermanas de
representatives
América
of the
Latina
great
y del
homeland,
Caribe. Agradezco la atención a la convocatoria
I just appreciate your attendance here at this important summit.
de la CELAC. Honduras entrega hoy la presidencia pro tempore de la CELAC, no como un acto ceremonial,
Not as a ceremonial
sino
act,
como un acto político,
but as a political act.
porque sostener este
Because
espacio en
holding
medio de la
this space
fragmentación y el asedio ha sido difícil, pero ha sido necesario para demostrar que
is
seguimos
to
trabajando por la unidad,
demonstrate, to show the
siendo
world that
el
we
continente
continue
de la esperanza,
working on our
de la
unity
diversidad cultural y política. En este año hemos fortalecido la CELAC,
this
desarrollando
year.
16 reuniones
We
de
have
coordinadores
held
nacionales,
16 meetings,
12
and we have
reuniones
strengthened the
ministeriales
CELAC
con alta asistencia y una cumbre virtual de emergencia por el caso de la
12
toma de la Embajada
ministerial
de México.
encounters with a high attendance and a virtual
La CELAC
emergency summit for the
No
case.
es una organización perfecta, pero es nuestra. Nace de un sueño, de un ideal,
The CELAC
de una
was burned
utopía
from an ideal.
nuestros
It's not a
libertadores
perfect
y de
organization,
nuestros
but
próceres.
it is
La
the dream
integración
of
de América
our
Latina y el Caribe frente al colonialismo
ancestors.
de las grandes potencias como
It is,
sujeto histórico, soberano y
It is
solidario,
aimed at
no como zona de
achieving our
sacrificio que
integration,
nos impone el capital
and
global.
it is
Este sueño de la unidad de la patria grande es hoy más urgente que
it
nunca.
is the response to that
Cuando el viejo
hegemony
orden
of
neoliberal impuesto
capitalism
a nuestros países colapsa y las grandes potencias como Estados Unidos redibuja su mapa económico sin preguntarse qué pueblos quedan atrás. Señores
So,
presidentes,
dear
presidentas,
presidents and
no podemos
high
seguir caminando
officials,
separados
we cannot
cuando el
continue
mundo se
walking
reorganiza sin
by
nosotros.
our sides alone.
Pero
We have
tampoco
to be together.
podemos unirnos repitiendo las recetas del fracaso.
We have
El
We have to organize and unite ourselves ahead of the neoliberal model.
Ha vaciado nuestras economías, endeudado nuestros países, concentrando el capital en pocas manos.
So that neoliberal model has emptied our economies, have concentrated the capital in few hands.
La naturaleza, que no debe seguir siendo tampoco un botín del capital. La precarización de la clase trabajadora.
The nature has been
las alianzas público-privadas
has always been affected. The public-private alliances, the privatization.
Nuestros jóvenes se han convertido en migrantes que buscando el sueño americano
and the alleged American dream in which youngsters and all of our peoples have been hit by the surge of the American dream, and then they have been deported.
Este compromiso contra la guerra y a favor de la paz tiene que ser ratificado este día en esta asamblea.
We are committed against war and in favor of peace. That has to be our priority. That has to be a tool.
De cooperación soberana, de justicia ambiental.
Our sovereign nations have to go for justice and democratic civilization societies. Our self-determination must prevail.
Sin abordar los temas que nos afectan, sin debatir el nuevo orden económico mundial que nos impone Estados Unidos con sus medidas.
The United States tariff policies have affected us in this new global economic order that it imposes.
Y todas sus participaciones serán transmitidas en vivo.
And we must take countermeasures
nacionales e internacionales. Desde Honduras hablamos con legitimidad. Resistimos 12 años,
we have
7
been
meses, una
resilient to a drug trafficking dictatorship for 12 years.
Contra el expresidente Manuel Zelaya Rosales, un gobierno democráticamente electo. Regresamos.
And then we suffer from a coup d'etat of the former president Manuel Zelaya González.
Democrática y popular. Fundamos con la resistencia el Partido Libre, hoy vanguardia del pueblo que nos llevó a la presidencia de la República.
So we founded with resistance the Free Party, which is the leader of the people.
Fue una victoria histórica. Mi gobierno en 3 años y 3 meses paga puntualmente la onerosa deuda heredada por la
And so in 3 years we paid the external debt inherited by the dictatorship, which is the second of the great indicators of our economic growth.
Canchas deportivas, energía, financiamiento al sector productivo, subsidio a los combustibles y ordenamiento en las finanzas
So we
públicas.
We have reached a lot of achievements in every sector of our economy.
Este día quiero recordar que en el 2009,
and we have plummeted the homicide rate.
Acechaban en la sede diplomática de la embajada de
They
Brasil.
in
El presidente Lula
in
da Silva
2009 they were
condenó el
inspecting
asedio
us in the embassy.
Si las fuerzas militares golpistas se atreven a entrar a la embajada de Brasil, donde se
There
encuentra
were
refugiado
in the embassy of
el
Brazil,
presidente Zelaya y su familia,
in which
estarían
President Zelaya
violando
was
todas
there
las
with his
normas
family,
internacionales y se van a tener a las consecuencias. Esto evitó el asesinato de quienes ahí nos encontrábamos.
violating the international regulations, and so they have to
Presidente
come to justice. They will have to face justice.
y a su canciller Celso Amorín. Estos crímenes siguen impunes. Desde esta historia,
From this history,
condenamos el cruel e inhumano bloqueo
we condemn the
económico
cruel
por
and
más de
humane
64
blockade
años de los
against
Estados
Cuba
Unidos
for over 60
contra el
years,
heroico pueblo cubano.
against
Cuba no exporta terroristas.
the heroic
Cuba
Cuban people.
exporta maestros.
Cuba doesn't export terrorists. Cuba
Y la
exports
dignidad que demandan
teachers.
nuestros pueblos. Asimismo,
Likewise,
reconocemos los derechos del pueblo bolivariano de Venezuela por su
and
independencia.
we just supported the government, the Bolivarian government of Venezuela, the rights of the Bolivarian
La
people,
soberanía del pueblo argentino
of
por
its
las Islas
sovereignty,
Malvinas. El clamor por la paz en la franja de Gaza.
the sovereignty of Gaza, the sovereignty
la
of
guerra de agresión contra el
Argentina,
pueblo palestino.
and so we condemned all wars of aggression.
La
We stand for
resistencia de
peace,
Haití, que exige una patria soberana cuyo destino sea definido
the
por
resistance
el pueblo haitiano y no por
that the
injerencias
people
extranjeras.
demands a sovereign nation without any foreign
9 de
interference.
abril, como hoy, en Bogotá, Colombia, Jorge Gaitán
Jorge Gaitán
fue asesinado
was assassinated in Bogota,
Por su
Colombia,
con una patria justa.
for a fair,
Manifestamos nuestra solidaridad,
as he was struggling for a fair homeland.
quien es víctima de la persecución de Lofer.
So we gave our
Quiero
solidarity
aprovechar este espacio
to
para lamentar y
those
solidarizarme
victims
con mi hermana República
that are
Dominicana
struggling for peace
por el
and
trágico accidente
independence.
donde fallecieron
And so
98
we
personas.
gave our solidarity to the Dominican Republic
Nada
nation
de esto
as
es pasado.
to those families who lost their
Presente
relatives
futuro.
in the accident on the club
Entregamos
night.
la responsabilidad y con la frente en alto la presidencia pro tempore de la CELAC a Colombia. Confiamos en el liderazgo del presidente Gustavo Petro
We
y
trust
estamos seguros
the leadership of the pro tempore president of Colombian President Gustavo
los
Petro.
desafíos, sino que mantendrá vivos
He
los
will
sueños
keep
pendientes
alive
revolucionarios
the dreams, the revolutionary dreams
Morazán,
of CELAC,
Martí, Fidel,
of Martí, of Fidel,
Chávez,
Chávez,
Sandino, y de los pueblos que
and
nunca
the
se
peoples
rinden,
As Commander Chavez said, the utopia is in the horizon, and so we are going to walk, we will walk through this. Long live integration, long live our peoples, long live CELAC. So we are resilience. Thank you very much.
We were watching live the opening speech of President of Honduras, Xiomara Castro, at this 9th CELAC Summit of Heads of States and Government as it kickstarts in Tegucigalpa in the Honduran capital. The Honduran president made a call for unity in this current context and to end the practice of countries walking along on their own path and in a way through unity to face neoliberalism and imperialism. She also denounced the historic looting of neoliberalism, that model, the looting of the natural resources of the regions of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as denounced the mistreatment that migrants are facing right now due to the U.S. Migrant policies of the mass deportation and the mistreatment and disregard for their human rights. She also expressed the groups, the regions, and Honduras' commitment to peace, and that has to be a priority for the region as a whole, as well as environment justice and sovereign cooperation. That way, she also denounced the foreign interference in the internal affairs of sovereign nations, in a way denouncing also the foreign interference of the United States in Venezuela and other regions in other countries of the regions like Cuba and Nicaragua, denouncing and condemning that Cuba be included in a list of states that allegedly support terrorism, adding that Cuba does not support terrorism, only supports life and education through its numerous international humanitarian missions. The president of Honduras also took the opportunity to condemn wars around the world and also to condemn the ongoing genocide in Gaza Strip being committed by Israel under the sponsorship of the United States and its allies in the eyes of the international community, and called for the immediate end of this conflict. So this was her opening speech at the 9th CELAC Summit. We're going to stay tuned in Honduras to stay attentive to everything that is coming out from this 9th CELAC Summit, which is very important for the region. So I invite you to stay tuned with teleSUR English to have the latest updates coming from Tegucigalpa.